for our students and moms and dads and such, if you want to, you can do this. I want you to think for a moment about what you would do if you were king or queen of the United States. What if everything in the country belonged to you, from the smallest little acre of land to the biggest buildings? What if it was your personal property and you could do anything you want? No Congress, no election, no nothing. What would you do? What are 3 things you would do if you had all the power? All the armies are yours, everything. It's a question that, like we say, kind of messing around, right? What would we do, right? But it's a question Louis had to answer when he was pretty young. He was made king of France at a young age. You and I would call it young. They actually thought you were an adult at 14, which terrifies me. But he had all of France, and it was his. Literally every piece of property. No one could say no to him. Whatever he said, that's the law. So what did he do with all of that power? With all of that strength, with his big, mighty armies? His armies were the terror of Europe. What did he do? Well, first, he changed and fixed all the laws. And how did he change them? He made them so that poor people couldn't be hurt by rich people anymore. He changed them so that, what we say in the church, he followed a church teaching, that you gave the, quote, preferential option to the poor. That if there was a dispute between a rich person and a poor person, you took care of the poor person. That's the first thing he did. What's the second thing he did? Well, he took all his money and he figured out who needed help. And he sent people out with wagons that had money in it to help people who were so poor that they couldn't find a meal without help. He gave people his property and said, you can farm that. If you work hard, you'll have food and you'll have a future. That's the first 2 things he did. And then what's the third thing he did? Well, he fixed all the churches. Because for years, all the people with power just kept the money for themselves and sent armies around to get them more power and more money. So what did he do? He said, well, the churches got neglected. Let's build some big, beautiful churches. And so they did. I got to tell you, that's not the first 3 things I would have done at 14. Yeah? Yeah, I would have bought the Detroit Tigers and announced prayer and fasting. But all kidding aside, for each of us, we have a little kingdom that God gave us. It's a kingdom that is our hearts. And in that heart, we have a lot of power. We can decide to always make sure we are taken care of first. Or we can make sure that that kingdom serves God and serves the world. It might be hard when you're a student, 8th grade or younger, to think that you have power, but you do. And that power, it can hurt people, can it? Sometimes we say bad things about people. We say bad things to people. Sometimes we're selfish, or we don't listen to our folks, or we say awful things we don't even mean to them. And that's when we use our power badly. But that kingdom that is your heart can also make it so that people who are near you feel better, so that they know what God's love looks like, what it sounds like. In our first reading, we heard Isaiah tell us that if we want our wounds healed, you know how our hearts hurt sometimes? He says if we want our wounds healed, here's what we need to do. And God knows, by the way, right? It's really his kingdom. He just lets us borrow it. What will help our kingdom of our hearts thrive? To be kind to those who are poor, to set people free who are lied about or lied to, sharing our food with people who are hungry, and never turning our back on the people we are with. He says if we do that, he says then our light will shine and our wounds will be quickly healed. So students, everybody, let's remember this kingdom we have inside of us. It's a lot of power. And what we want to do is use our power well so that we act like Jesus, we sound like Jesus, and we give all we have emotionally and in our minds to help other people have a good life. A life where people are not lying about us, not around us, or lying about them, not around us. A life where we aren't calling people names or shutting them out, but where through the example and prayers of St. Louis of France, that our kingdom of our hearts shines. Amen.